Bob Dalton, CEO and founder of Sackcloth and Ashes, Oregon-based company that donates a blanket to a homeless shelter for every blanket it sells. And I think you've given away something like a 500,000 blankets so far. So such an amazing idea and a great company. So first of all, congratulations and thank you for what you do. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So we invited you to actually comment on a couple of different features that we did this year and add your powerful insights. The first of which was companies created to save the world for real. And what we did in that article was feature companies that had capitalistic solutions to problems that in the past, may have relied on nonprofits or charities alone. But you have created this very amazing example of a social capital company that proves that capitalism really can work to make the world a better place and help people, not just in the way the company is run itself, but in the actual purpose of the company. And I'd love to just start off with, why, because it's a really powerful story, and I would love to have you tell it in your own words, why and how you started this company in the first place.
Yeah, my journey specifically with Sackcloth and Ashes started in 2013. I was just transitioning out of a nonprofit and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I was 24 years old. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do nonprofit work, continue to do nonprofit work, or go into business. Wasn't sure, but at the same time, my mom ended up going through a series of events and ended up living on the streets. And that put a whole, halt to my entire mission, philosophy, what I was wanting to pursue with my life. And her ending up in the streets changed my paradigm of homelessness, because as passionate as I was of helping social issues, homelessness was always at the bottom of the list because I had a difficult time understanding, you know, every other social issue I could wrap my mind around. But with homelessness, my attitude was, why don't you just walk into the McDonald's that you're asking for money in front of and just apply for a job? And it just felt like a social issue that could easily be solved by people not being lazy. And when my mom ended up in that situation, it changed my understanding of it, because she's the hardest working woman that I know. She has 2 college degrees. She managed restaurants to raise my sister by herself. And so for her to end up in that situation made me realize that not everybody chooses to become homeless, but some people just need a second chance. And I wanted to do something at that point. So I started calling homeless shelters to ask what they needed, and they said blankets. And that's when I came up with the concept of starting a blanket company. And for every blanket that we sell, we'll donate a blanket to your local homeless shelter. As the years have gone on, we have went from just simply wanting to donate blankets to figuring out creative ways to highlight solutions in local communities that are being created to help society's biggest issues. And so how can we use our platform as a brand to bring exposure to the amazing work that's already going on in local communities? And so we often say blankets are a bridge. Blankets being donated is a great and admirable thing, and shelters do need them. But blankets are ultimately a bridge that have connected us to some of the best solutions in the United States, and opening my eyes to how can we best support them, and bring more exposure to these amazing grassroots leaders that are showing up day in and day out, doing amazing work in their communities. So the mission has went from donating blankets to shedding light on solutions and having a deeper conversation on what it means to make a local impact. And that's where we're at now, 10 years down the road.
So, oh my God, you said so much great stuff there in so many ways. I really zeroed in on that, the ability to that this company had to change the way you looked at things, to change the way that you saw homelessness, which is so powerful. That the idea that a company could change how we view people, and to view people in a more in a more human way is so incredibly compelling. But what is it in your background that you would say, or someone that you met or someone that you knew maybe that enabled you to think that you could actually make a company that would succeed doing this, as opposed to, like you said, you came from the nonprofit world. What did you see that said, okay, this could actually have a profit, and doing this could actually create a profit that would then allow us to do, all these other things down the road?
Yeah, the company that pioneered the one from one model was Tom's Shoes. And
Mm,
they had been in business for about 8 years, I believe, when I launched Sackcloth and Ashes. And they were the first company to really show like you can, make an impact for every product that's sold. And that was different than just donating money or a check to organizations. It was a
yeah.
direct correlation to your product and making it easy for the buyer to understand that every product that I purchase, I'm making an equivalent type of impact with the same products. And so they were the pioneers of the one for one model. I wanted to see the one for one model evolve into making it local. So when you buy a blanket, we'll send a blanket to your local homeless shelter. Because homelessness is not a international or even a national issue, it is a local issue. And so how can we empower people to make a difference down the street from where they live is the evolution to the one for one model that I wanted to see and incorporate.
And that local value is so important, obviously, and the way that you extrapolated out that one for one to be local. What are what are some of the things that you've learned um, by doing this as a business model on a local level that you may not have learned if you were doing this as a nonprofit?
Well, it made me take a deeper look on what capitalism should be utilized for. And to your
Mm,
point earlier, there's two types of capitalism. There's capitalism where you're making business decisions at the expense of humanity. And there's the capitalism where you're making business decisions for the sake of humanity. And right now we're at a crossroads in capitalism and globalism to where we have the ability to make decisions at the expense of people or for the sake of people. And when you only have money driven, power hungry leaders, typically they're making decisions at the expense of human connection, human mental health, or at the expense of really the middle class and the lower class. And that's what we have to take a strong look at capitalism right now in where it's at currently is what type of decisions are we making for the sake of humanity? And really doing a deeper dive on how companies are making decisions is extremely important right now.
I love that. I mean, you summed up so much of why we started the Center for Social Capital and what we're about. And you're right, we are absolutely at a crossroads right now, and I, kind of call it a schism in capitalism, if you will, because I think there's a lot of people doing it wrong. I don't think that capitalism was intended to be predatory. I think it was intended to be service oriented and actually supply, a need. So what a powerful thing to learn about capitalism and to learn. And I love the fact that, especially because you started this when you were a little younger. And you're a wonderful spokesperson, if you will, for younger Americans and younger people who, may be a little turned off to capitalism and say, oh, well, capitalism is all about greed. Well, here you are to say, no, that's not true. That's not what it's supposed to be about. It's just maybe how some people are doing it. So I love that you're this proof positive that no, you can do it this way, and here's what you're going to be able to make happen. And along those lines, you said something really powerful when we started out about, at first it was giving the blankets, and now there's so many other things that we can do. Tell our viewers a little bit more about, just how this has evolved, and what are some of the other things that you guys are doing now and you guys are involved in now.
Yeah, as you grow a business, especially over a decade, you have a lot of opportunities to reevaluate who we are as a company and be able to reinvent yourself. And I've felt a shift going on and in my personal journey with capitalism and running a business, where most of our narrative for the first 8 years of the company was self-focused. It was us launching a campaign called Blanket the United States, where at the end of the day, in that narrative, we are the hero. We are going to blanket the United States. And I shifted all of our messaging on our 10-year anniversary to making a local impact through all of our messaging and moving away from the messaging of blanketing the United States, because as a company, we're not going to solve homelessness. That's just a reality. As a company, you're not going to change the world. But you can empower a lot of people and inspire a lot of people to change where they're at and where they're located. And so I have many conversations with companies now about, we got to be done with the big checks. We got to be done with the ribbon cuttings. And how can you empower your customer base and your employees to make a difference in their local communities? That's how we're going to create real sustainable change. So the narrative for us went from look at all the amazing work that we're doing as a company to making the shift in narrative of look at all the amazing work that they're doing as an organization, and using our platform to highlight people and organizations that are doing good work in the world. If you want to be liked as a company, talk about all of the amazing work that you're doing. If you want to be respected as a company, talk about all the amazing work that someone else is doing. And I think that that's the next evolution of what you would call conscious capitalism, or using your company for impact, is stop talking about all the amazing work that you're doing as a company and start figuring out creative ways on how you can highlight amazing work that's going on outside of your company and your institution. And I think that you're going to gain way more respect from people that are following your company and the consumers and customers by making that shift.
And that's the extraordinary growth potential of the way we call it. And when you were saying, what do you call it? Social capital. I mean, that's why we called it this, because it's that capital that you create by doing business this way. And that capital grows and makes all kinds of other things possible. And I love that distinction that you made, because it's your real product is really making a lot of people realize that they need to do business this way, and that if they do business this way, extraordinary things can happen. And then all of a sudden, you have this 10x, 100x exponential flow, of the love potential, so to speak, of business. And I mean, that's such an incredible concept. So you're a wonderful spokesman for all this. So I'm so glad that you're taking the time to do this, because you're perfectly illustrating and describing, how this all works, and and how we can, take it to the next level. And speaking of which, so what are you doing personally now? How has this personally affected you in your own life? How would you say your life has changed since this extraordinary growth of your company and this amazing idea?
Yeah, before I dive into that, I want to make one more point, which is to your point about a lot of people feeling a negativity about capitalism and technology even. I have a lot of friends that are becoming more and more anti-capitalism or anti-system or anti-government. But the truth is that if we truly are against the corrupt corporations that exist right now, we cannot just protest. We have to use capitalism and technology and innovation and innovate new ways of doing things, new opportunities for people to be able to buy product or use technology. And we cannot sit back and just complain about Meta. We have to utilize innovation and technology to compete against Meta. We can't just sit back and complain about Amazon. We have to use innovation and capitalism to compete against Amazon. So there is a reality that, yes, there's a lot of people that are anti, but we have to call on all of the entrepreneurs and all of the innovators into a new way of doing things by utilizing capitalism, technology, and retail to pioneer a new way and new options for people to participate in. And that's why I'm still in the game. I'm not just going to sit back and be anti organizations or anti government. We have to use that particular model in order to innovate against them and offer up new opportunities. So I just want to make that super clear. I'm not anti-globalist. I'm not anti-capitalist. But I believe in utilizing and innovating within these particular structures to open up new doors. How it's go ahead.
No, you actually answered the question that I had, I think, by saying what you did, because I think it obviously has changed you to become more proactive instead of reactive, probably, in your life, as so many people can be. It's easy to be reactive, obviously, right? Something upsets you, you complain about it. Oh man, But I think it was Robert F. Kennedy Senior who once said, a lot of people look at the world and say, why? I look at how it is not and say, why not? Why can't we make it that way? And that's so much of what you're saying, and that's a transformation, in a person as well. When you come to that realization that you have got to make something happen, not just complain about the way things are.
Yeah, somebody recently asked me in an interview, how are you remaining optimistic when it feels like everything around us is falling apart or not working? And it seems like a pretty bleak future. And my answer to that was, I'm not optimistic, nor am I pessimistic, because I'm not going to allow current structures and systems to define for me what the future looks like for me. I'm not sitting here, sweating and losing sleep over the future of AI, because I believe that we have the ability to create the future in which we want to see. And so I'm not going to allow the 2% of humanity to create what the future is ultimately going to look like for the rest of humanity. I'm going to get in the game and use capitalism and technology to innovate new opportunities and create the future that I want to see, that we want to see. And that's the type of courage that we ultimately need from entrepreneurs right now. We cannot just succumb to the future in which is being painted by these, the 2% corporations that are defining what they think is the future, which are mostly business decisions at the expense of human connection and community. We have to pioneer a new way. And I believe we have the ability to create the future in which we want to see. We don't have to just succumb to a future that's being painted for us. And it might sound ambitious, but I do believe that is possible. And if we don't at least try, I personally would have more regret if we didn't try than sit back and allow things to unfold the way that they're unfolding now.
Yeah, and I mean, from my perspective, it just means what a great opportunity, right? We have work to do, and we have an opportunity to do this important work and to make important things happen. And you so eloquently represent that. And I mean, it's again such a great example to anyone, but especially I think at a time when a lot of young people are looking for direction. What an extraordinary story yours is, because you started this at a young age and said, let me make a difference. And I think that's a wonderful segue into another thing that you said when we interviewed or asked you for some comments for another article that we did on community and how you support community through your company. And you gave us a great quote, and you said, when building a community, one of the most important questions you can ask is, what type of value are we bringing people to make them want to be a part of our community? And you went on to say, this question gets to the heart of what makes a community special. When people are feeling valued, which unfortunately isn't often nowadays, they not only work more effectively, but it creates a positive culture and environment that they work within. And I think, again, this just connects so much to much of what you're talking about right now. When people are not feeling they're feeling negative. They're not feeling positive. I think a lot of this potentially, in your opinion, does a lot of this have to do with the fact that they're not feeling valued?
Yeah, it gets to the root of what I feel like the true crossroads that we are on right now, which is we are in a fight for human connection and community in the future. As things rapidly advance in AI, as things rapidly advance in, uh, it's really in my opinion, it's the conversation of global versus local. Um, we are at a crossroads right now where we have to fight for human connection and community in the future, which is why it's only a matter of time that I'll be getting involved into the tech world, um, because I believe that we have a lot of opportunity right now to pioneer new opportunities for local communities, for digital communities that are localized. And I think that everything has moved global. Big has eaten small for so long that it's affected the middle class and local communities in such a major way. So I'm looking at the landscape right now from a technological standpoint and from a product standpoint, from a platform standpoint, that there's so much opportunity and innovation that can happen for local communities right now, because that is where things are ultimately heading. Is we are at the top of the pendulum with globalism, and the pendulum is about to swing back right now, towards a counterbalance of localism and globalism. And the more technology, the more businesses that we can start to help empower people on a local level is probably the biggest opportunities that we have right now for innovation. So we are in a fight for what type of platforms and businesses and technology are we creating right now to empower local community is probably the most overlooked innovation and opportunity that we have right now in all of capitalism.
I love that. It's so inspiring, and sounds like you gave us a little hint towards some other things that you might be doing in the future as well. And I hope you definitely keep us in the loop on those and let us know what they are, because we'd be very excited to hear about them first and foremost.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I'm currently working on is writing the Localism Manifesto. And localism it's not a philosophy that I'm pioneering by any means or creating. It's the oldest philosophy of human history. And over the last 200 years, globalism has really been on the rise in connection with capitalism. And it was only 200 years ago that people lived and functioned and communicated within a 20-mile radius from where they lived. Only 200 years ago. And
Wow.
That's most of human history.
Yeah.
And so it's only within the last 200 years that the world has become globalized from a finance standpoint, communication standpoint, a news and media standpoint. And so the future that really the rest of my career will be dedicated to how can we innovate by bringing back communication, local banking, finance, local journalism. There's so much opportunity to bring the conversation and the focus back to local communities and local cities, which are desperately in need of right now. And so that's really, working on the manifesto is my diagnosis of what localism is and how it's going to shape the future of society. And then, working on additional things in addition to that to help integrate localism back into society as a main philosophy and priority for the future.
Well, that's extraordinary. We would love to hear more about that manifesto and maybe even publish some pieces of it and whatnot, and work with you on distributing that as much as possible, and have you back as much as we can, and have you contributing as much as we can, because these are extraordinary and important thoughts, and you are a deep thinker but also a practical thinker, and that's a very powerful combination. So thank you so much for taking the time that you've taken today to really give our viewers an extraordinary glimpse into not just why you did what you did, but how and why everybody can be involved in this effort, and to make the world a better place through capitalism. So thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love having these conversations. And as you can tell, I have them all day long and think about this all day long. So this is what I live and breathe.
All right, Bob. Well, we are definitely going to have you back, and we are definitely going to have you be as much of a part of this center as you want to be. So we're excited about that, and welcome to our movement. Welcome to Social Capital. We really appreciate having you here. So thanks so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for all the amazing work that you guys are doing as well.